He's the author of the all-new children's book, The ACLU and Me. He's Dr. Bob, and he's here, kids.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, The Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
How's that book coming, Doc?
Well, it's ACLU and I. For little kids, let's get them all started properly on grammar there.
I'm sorry I goofed up the title of your book.
Well, yeah, it's looking for a publisher, but who knows?
Okay, the shutdown, your take.
Well, it's moving along. I think increasingly you're seeing efforts to deal with the whole issue of declaring a national emergency. And I think there's a number of different aspects here indicating that people are becoming more and more acclimated to the idea of Trump doing that. After all, Trump has said that he's willing to take the responsibility for the shutdown. He wasn't, but the advantage of declaring a national emergency is that they can then open government and he can approve the funding, and we can move ahead with taking, I assume, military funds. Now, there may be some other national security funds around somewhere he can draw on and put together most of that $5 billion. The thing about the Defense Department is, of course, it is so huge. And a couple points I want to make on it. One, when I worked for the Office of Management and Budget and the Executive Office of the President, I had a colleague there whose job was to follow up on the Defense Department line items over $2 million. Now, that was years ago, and as you
when
can
you
imagine,
were working for LBJ.
that number, and that was before LBJ, actually.
Really?
Yes.
Who were you working for? What president?
Would you stop interrupting me
Well,
when
it's
I got something going here? So, at any rate, the point is, this guy's job was to see where this money was going. And do you think he could get anything from the military, the Defense Department? I mean, he was constantly. They weren't about to tell him how much money they had in this account or that account. And we concluded that the Defense Department had enough surplus funds hidden away they could probably run for a year without any direct appropriations. So there's tons of money hidden around there, and I think with a little imagination, Trump can probably find the $5 billion or $4.5 billion, whatever he wants to do. So the advantage of that is it breaks the logjam, and the paychecks can come out. These guys can go back to work, and the Democrats, I don't know what, they can complain about presidential excessive power and such. And, it may well end up in the courts, but generally the courts are rather reluctant to go head-to-head with the president. And apparently there's a number of statutes out there that allow the president to do this. So there's a number of questions you could raise there. But it really is quite amazing, Brian, that this idea that somehow we should just open our borders and let everybody flow in. I mean,
it's mean if we don't.
What other country in the world would do that? I mean, that's just...
They're nice,
just
we're mean.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the
well, that's
the
what they're saying.
There. Yeah. But the other point I wanted to make on this national emergency and the use of defense funds is that I don't know who the new Secretary of Defense is going to be. A lot of people are pushing Jim Webb, who is a former senator from Virginia, a Democrat, but quite a conservative fellow. In fact, I think he turned Democrat and was, I think, Secretary of the Navy at one point, but is generally pretty highly thought of. But the guy second to him, who I think is already in place, is a former purchasing executive from one of the major corporations, and that's what Trump wants. He wants somebody in there who is overseeing the contracts that the Defense Department is letting out, and how they're dealing with cost overruns, which are huge. And his feeling is, this is ridiculous. Somebody's got to bring this under control. So the whole thing, I think, fits together pretty well in that respect.
Dr. Bob,
Yes.
do you want to move on to state news yet? Because there's a few big things going on.
Well, the other thing at the national level that we might touch on is the increasing movement on the part of the administration to deal with another vacancy on the Supreme Court. And the question is Ginsburg and her health. As you know, she's not been attending oral arguments, and apparently she's listened to them at home. And I don't know how long this can go on, but there's no way you can remove her. I mean, she can hang on there for a long time. Justice, Justice, at any rate, Douglas, in the 60s and 70s, in the 70s especially, wanted to be the longest serving justice on the court in history. And, I mean, he was all tubed up, and they had to wheel him in a wheelchair. And what's his name, Blackman, I think, or White, who complained about the smell in the room. It was, but he just hung on and hung on.
And the big issue for
Ruth
Bader Ginsburg is?
The what?
The big issue, the reason why Ruth Bader Ginsburg wants to stay around is?
Well, she doesn't want Trump to appoint another conservative in her place.
But the big issue?
The big issue?
Roe v. Wade.
I think you're overdoing that.
Really?
Yes.
You don't think that's the big issue?
No, I don't think Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned, Brian. That's
how do you think Kavanaugh's been on that so far, and how do you think he will be if?
We don't know. They had a case in terms of a challenge to the Planned Parenthood, which the Supreme Court refused to hear. So that means that they couldn't get 4 justices willing to bring the case up to the court. So it's just very hard to say. I mean, again, it'll be a different court. It'll be quite a bit more conservative court. But overruling something like Roe v. Wade, it's been a precedent, as Justice O'Connor said. Justice O'Connor said back, in 92, we just don't change the law because we've got different judges here. So we'll see. I think you're right. I think for a lot of people, it's still quite important. But if you were to outlaw abortion, and again, I don't favor it at all. But
people would still be able to get them.
Yes, that's right. You would have.
There would be 80 gazillion doctors that people could go to, and it would be all
I don't think
quiet.
so. Not so much anymore, buddy. Most of these abortion clinics have been pretty much shut down. But at any rate, moving on.
State politics. Looking at the Syracuse Post and Albany Times Union headlines.
Oh?
Upstate New York GOP leaders want State Chair Ed Cox to resign.
Yes.
Now, you kind of are a mover and a shaker and a player, if I'm not mixing up my phrases, in that world. What's going on?
Well, here's what's going on, Brian. The county chairs from the 4th Judicial District, I guess. New York State's courts are divided up into districts so that the Buffalo down through Allegheny County is the 8th district, Steuben County, Monroe County down through Steuben County, and a couple others there is the 7th, and it moves over to the east. So the 4th district, I don't know, it's over there toward Albany, I would guess north of Syracuse somewhere, I don't know. But at any rate, the county chairs from that district have all asked Ed Cox to step down. And apparently in the 8th district, in the district around, the 7th district, I guess, the lady who's chair of the county chairs group in that district, which includes Steuben County, has said that she thinks her whole group of chairs also would like to see Cox step down. So I think it's got to the point where there's going to be sufficient pressure on Ed. Basically, he's just going to have to step aside. And it's
really?
Yeah.
Do you think he's getting blamed
Yes.
for Mark, or no, not Mark Molinaro. Do you think he's getting blamed for State Senator John Flanagan's move to take Senator Young out of
No,
the
no, I don't
re-election
know.
committee,
Oh, come on.
which cost the GOP?
He's getting blamed for the loss of the governor's race, but he's also getting blamed for the tremendous smearing that the Republicans took in the state Senate. He's got to take responsibility for that.
Is Cox a Flanagan guy?
I don't know.
Okay.
He's a nice guy. He's very bright. He's incorruptible because he's really wealthy, and so you have all those. But his ability to put together the kind of really hard-charging political campaigns is he just doesn't have it. And Cuomo really went for the jugular this time and succeeded. So the question then becomes the issue of where are we going to get a state chairman to succeed Mr. Cox, and of course there are plenty of people who think they should be the state chair. This Nick Langworthy,
Buffalo.
Yeah, who's county chair in Buffalo, has thought I think for quite a bit of time that he should be the state chair. And that's a rough bunch over there in Buffalo. There with guys like Palladino running around there, you frankly kind of want to keep your distance. But the fact of the matter is that Langworthy wins. In a pretty heavily Democratic area, he's been successful in maintaining at least some respectability for the Republicans. Then I think there's some farther downstate there, but I guess Mr. Kolb, who is the assemblyman from
Canandaigua
in that area, I guess he thinks he's the minority leader in the state assembly, and he may think, I think he does think, because he picked up 4 or 5 seats in the state assembly, that somehow he's been a success. We'll see. He may think that he should be the new state chair. After what he did to Phil Palmisano, I really, frankly, have no use for the guy.
Kolb?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What are we talking?
Well, he redrew his lines so that...
that was Kolb?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that he could protect his district, and he cut Palmisano out of Hornell. I mean, that's just outrageous. But that's politics.
Get him on the line, Doc. That was something else.
Yeah, it was not good.
Well, it totally weakened Phil because Phil Palmisano's
I think I understand, Brian.
Well, his 2 big strongholds are Hornell and Corning, and
Yes.
he takes Hornell out of it.
Right, and sticks him up in Seneca County and up in
all these other places.
Right. No, it was outrageous. Now I don't know what NoJ had to do with that, because he gives NoJ Hornell.
Really?
At any rate, I don't have much use, but he may well end up state chair. I don't know.
Doc, I'm learning things today.
Well, Brian, just hang around.
Can we hang around for the break?
Well, I've got some really good stuff, but sure.
Selecting a nursing home for a loved one isn't easy until you've discovered Hornell Gardens Nursing and Rehabilitation. Hornell Gardens delivers the highest level of care, compassion, and commitment with amenities and activities that will enrich body, mind, and spirit. It's a place that's close to home. Stop in for a tour of Hornell Gardens, located at 434 Monroe Avenue in Hornell, or to learn more, call 585-222-CARE or visit hurlbutcare.com.
Back with Dr. Bob. This is really interesting today.
Well, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, you kind of let some interesting stuff out of the bag. I don't think the Republican Party ever put that out there, that NoJ and Kolb might have been the reason that Palmisano lost Hornell in his district map. He used to have Hornell within his district map.
Well, I think OJ liked Phil Palmisano. I don't think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and I don't know anybody who doesn't like Phil Palmisano, to tell you the truth.
This is true.
But when it comes to maintaining your position versus his, why, somebody's got to go. No, that was pretty all right. But be that as it may, what's the other area to look at is the state Senate.
Yes.
And the Republicans in the state Senate. And my understanding is that a number of the state senators, the Republican state senators, are not happy with Flanagan because he put himself forward as a leader for the Republicans, knowing that he was going to go into alcohol rehab. And they're pretty unhappy about that. I mean, this is the second time now he's gone in for alcohol rehab.
Why does that always get announced? I don't understand that. Why does that become public information? Couldn't he have his appendix out in the news?
Well, but that wouldn't be transparent.
I suppose.
Now the problem is he's not there when the legislature opens its session, which I think it has opened. And, he's not there, and he's the leader of the Republicans, right? I mean, where is he? Well, he's in a rehab somewhere. So he's got to admit to what was going on. And, he could say, he had a tonsillectomy or something like that. But somebody would find out, and
right.
Then it would be even worse. But no, so the real question is he going to be able to hang on there as leader of the Senate Republicans? And again, Senator Young has been magnanimous about the whole thing, but she lost to him by 3 or 4 votes. 15-9 or something like that. So if 3 votes changed, it would have been a tie. Could have flipped a coin. I don't know, but I think a lot of the people that supported her, and I would guess some of the people that supported Flanagan right now, are thinking this is pretty shady. So,
Dr. Bob, on the topic of Senator Young, she put out a statement yesterday.
Yes.
After she was sworn in, it said the future of upstate New York is the most critically pressing issue facing government. She says they want to avoid what the Democrats want to do in legalizing marijuana, taxpayer finance campaigns, early voting, and the other extremist items on the agenda from the New York City Dems. It's her mission to try to stop this stuff.
Well, I think the important thing she has to do is lay out what we're doing and what the consequences are likely to be. And I do see, looking at the agenda as Cuomo has laid it out, frankly, it's a lot more moderate than if you let these nutcases in the Assembly and the Senate get loose. And, of course, it's easy for them to get up there and want this and want this and want that. The governor's got to step in at some point. But this whole area of single-payer health insurance, clearly Cuomo doesn't have any interest in going down that road. And the estimate I saw from one of the lobbyist groups was that it would be about a $689 billion cost. But the real problem from a single payer is that their reimbursements to hospitals and doctors and such would be cut dramatically. And what would happen, I think, is a lot of doctors would just leave New York State. Today, you've got a number of different private insurance companies plus the state providing health insurance. And there's some competition, and people take, they can choose. And frankly, we have a pretty good health system all across the board. So I don't know why you would, for some reason, try to throw that in the trash. So we'll just have to see. I think we could well end up in a situation where Cuomo and, say, Heastie, the Speaker of the Assembly, may be at odds on quite a number of issues. I don't know. Who knows how the state Senate's going to play out?
Someone we haven't talked about in quite some time is Marjorie Burns, the new assembly person.
Right.
Do I say assemblywoman?
Yeah, whatever.
Whichever way. Anyways, Assemblywoman Marjorie Burns, she just met with Congressman Tom Reed earlier in the week.
I see.
Got together in Dansville.
I see.
Do you have any thoughts on Marjorie Burns? And if not, any thoughts on Congressman Tom Reed, who we have not brought up in this show yet?
Oh. Well, what kind of thoughts do you think I should have?
Well, Reed, I was talking about this with Dr. Ostrower on Thursday morning, and Ostrower agreed with my analysis.
Oh.
It's kind of interesting to watch Reed. While on the one hand he's very conservative, on the other hand he tries to get along with the Democrats as much as he can, wherever and whenever he can. And you see that he did not support Nancy Pelosi for House Speaker, but he supported legislation that Pelosi supported for the reforms changes that Reed's been pushing with the problem solvers.
I think you got that backwards. I think Pelosi supported those changes because then Reed and the Problem Solvers Caucus agreed to support her.
And at the last minute, he said he did not.
Did not what?
Support. He didn't vote for Nancy Pelosi.
No, that's true. But the point is, the Problem Solvers Caucus kicked in. She won by only 2 votes for the speakership, 2 or 3 votes. So the idea that somehow she's in firm control there is just not accurate. But the thing that Reed wanted and the Problem Solvers Caucus wanted was a change in the rules in the House of Representatives so that you couldn't have a situation anymore where a single member of the House could simply torpedo or stall legislation that the majority supported. So I think there are some rules changes there that are going to help everybody in the House of Representatives, and we'll see if. I think Pelosi will try to maintain those change rules, but her ability to hold together a majority in the House of Representatives, I think, is pretty tenuous.
All right, Dr. Bob, we're out of time. I want to give you a chance to plug that new book one more time, The ACLU and I. Are there a lot of pictures in that book? I like those books with lots of pictures, Doc.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that, Brian.